Did you ever used to spin in circles as a child or build fairy forts? Or maybe you remember the first introduction of like the guardian of thresholds, the sleep paralysis demon. Yes, the sleep paralysis demon is well known in esoteric circles. It has a function, just like every single hobby you've ever had or did as a child has a spiritual equivalent, and every physical illness has a spiritual solution. Every act, event, trial before now, before me speaking this moment, has had spiritual significance and has given you something growing forward. You've been collecting strengths like my aunt collects porcelain clowns. You'll find them where you least expect it. This frame of mind, it's not true as a matter of the law of the universe. It's true because the belief gives us these powers. Spiritual beliefs affect the mundane. If a belief is useful, keep it. Once you hit the ultimate truth of everything forever and ever, this becomes easier. When I was younger, I went to a Spanish church, and they only spoke Spanish there. But by then, I had lost the ability for me to speak Spanish. And so I practiced sitting with stillness. I wasn't just sitting still, stillness was a companion with me, a spirit. So you can just imagine me sitting next to a spirit of calm, quiet compassion, one of witnessing. And now imagine me growing up with this spirit and then hating every second of being alone with stillness and then getting powers from it. I waited for church to be over and I did that for years, maybe about a decade for hours a week. It was my first meditation practice. Meditation now, funnily enough, is my strongest practice, and I can do any sort of advanced spell work you've seen others do. I can do that with meditation. I learned to love meditation once I wasn't so forced to do it. It took even longer to appreciate the people who put me through it. So shout out to my theme of therapists. My theme of therapists. Shout out to my team of therapists. The belief that an event like that gave me power was one of the best personal choices I've ever made. When I was younger, I played pretend. I visualized with toys, made little cities with stuffed animals. I made skits with Barbies with my cousins. And then from my parents, I learned the basic religious principles, like that there's a world beyond our own that we cannot see. And this is the same story as so many other people out there. You get it. I'm like you, but in a different fonts. When I was little, I played with fairies. My brother and I made little storehouses in the dirt and buildings from twigs and leaves. And I left them offerings of like nuts and raisins and would tell the fairies about my day. This was maybe on the more magical side, but I'd wager you had something similar, unique about your own childhood. Talking to spirits only you could see, your imaginary friends, or having prophetic dreams and strange paranormal occurrences, maybe a heavy fever or two, some severe illnesses. When I was 14, my mother left the church, and I met a witch, and she taught me basic witchcraft. She was a weirdo, I was a weirdo. I mean, you know the type already, right? Band kids pretending to be possessed to scare each other, vandalizing sidewalks with chalk and making shrines in the woods, summoning all sorts of things that shouldn't be summoned. But yes, also the more basic things like altar tending, protection, grounding, cleansing, and just working with spirits. She tried to help me learn spells, but those never worked for me. In college, I would study Buddhism with my Buddhist professors, and oftentimes, fun fact about philosophy majors, you'll catch the faculty of the philosophy departments getting progressively drunker and arguing with either each other or the students. And I think they find it so fun that the students are so dumb or at least uneducated when it comes to philosophy and just run circles around them. And outside of that bar, and actually in my one on one classes or tutoring sessions or office hours, we read and meditated. We discussed what reality was and how Eastern philosophy relates to Western philosophy and how it differs. It was my first academic decolonization. I needed those Buddhism skills to give me compassion at the time because I was very harsh on myself. I didn't like myself so much. I was not my own best friend. I started Rinzai Zen Buddhism, which is a subsection at 25. I did 10 hours a day for 10 days, and then I did that 4 times that year when I was studying my first koan, which is a little riddle designed to break your brain with uncertainty. And then I had to stop after 10 days because you really start to hallucinate some, and that's not something I can tolerate. I became immune to uncertainty after doing it for so long, though. Okay, so just a little check here. Not literal, When I speak, it's quite often nonsense because the words can't penetrate the matter of the truth. The closest we can get is poetry, the emotion of it. So when I say I became immune to uncertainty, it's sort of like the way a rock is immune to the winds. And then at 27, I studied decolonial and non Western philosophy, which looked like studying womanism, indigenous fiction, indigenous nonfiction, books from African shamans, books from academics. And then when you read such a wide base, ethics and your worldview are transformed, it's easier to see the way forward than it is to rely on only the way we were raised as a guidepost, your pre programmed beliefs, your default settings. It's not the capital T truth, and even then, I would argue that the capital T truth matters less than how we treat relationships. In my 30s, my studies continued as I broadened and did things like Taoism, herbalism, and yoga, which is all the limbs, not just the asanas or not just the stretches. It's constant studying, constant self improvement, autodidactism, or however you would say that, the self study, the pursuit of self study, constant experimentation, and then sometimes having it be a waste. Sometimes it poofing in your face because you mixed two traditions that should have never been mixed. For instance, one time I made a contract with the fairies and I left my payment open. It's like, yeah, just give me this fairies and you can take whatever you want. And then they took the ability to smell sandalwood from me for 5 years. So anytime someone would burn sandalwood, I would either not register it or become violently nauseous. So be careful what you pay the fairies. What's the definition of spirituality? It can be a creation story or metaphysical beliefs, maybe not the kind of beliefs that have you barking in the parking lot, saying that you've lost the ability to tell what gender people are, which happens to me sometimes when I go to Kroger. Spirituality is the beliefs about ancestors, our duties towards them. Spirituality is also learning to tell ancestors to shut up and play nice. No joke, just point at them and tell them, hey, maybe you should sit this one out. You've done enough in this life and that life. Spirituality is practices relating to maybe diets, fitness, worship magic, maybe your purpose, definitely how meaning is created, and then what stories are most important and what ethics and values are most important. Are you getting the idea yet? It's a wide definition that's related to the culture of belief, self care, and responsibility. It's not just cranking your hog to sigils. I'm looking at you, Chaos Magic. It's not just sprinkling herbs on jars or herbs on candles. So thank you, TikTok, for showing me all the ways I can make inedible soup in a jar. And then the candles, however, only mildly inedible. If we could just grab spirituality's definition and condense it, I would say that spirituality is the self directed pursuit of organizing one's life in all domains: rest, relationships, health, family, work, recreation. And then let's condense it deeper. Spirituality is awareness. Okay, maybe that's too far. Let's expand it again. Organizing one's life in all those domains according to various mystical traditions, religious ones, mindfulness ones, magical traditions, and your own personal gnosis. Other people's experiments on self organizing their life, plus time, and then you discovering that and experimenting on your own and discarding and keeping all that, that's the work of spirituality. This can be as small as taking a meditation practice from Mahayana Buddhism only, or as elaborate as crossing multiple practices from a variety of traditions all over every mean of life. So, restated, this is as small as how you treat people who are different than you, your ethics and your morals, and then as big as what makes you fulfilled in your life and your internal experience of how things are. And then I know, it's getting a little wishy washy complicated. I might as well have said that it's as small as Mothra and then as big as her wife Godzilla. When talking to my younger self, how would I even condense all my spiritual knowledge into 10 points? That doesn't work, but here's an attempt anyway. The short form first. No urgency, aim at balance, give yourself permission slips. Spiritual practices are disciplines. Use 7 types of rests. Relationships with all beings are most important. Enlightenment means awareness. Study Taoism, the microcosmic orbit, and then non Western philosophy. The universe is on your side, so dance with it. And then
Biases are a weapon we can wield, like the confirmation bias, the action bias, psychological biases. All right, let's take that, expand each point a little bit. No urgency. Urgency comes at the cost of health. You burn life force to complete a task. The completion of the task is never worth the cost it took in your life force. There are some things we can work fast at. Yeah, sure. The guidepost is our health. The task is to live a good life. What is a good life? Philosophy answers that fundamental question of what is a good life. So pick a philosophy, ancient tradition, doesn't matter. They'll give you an answer. What matters most is that you don't burn your life to achieve the goal. It's the process and never the results. Urgency is extraction. Extraction is less productive over the long term. It's not sustainable to only focus on the speed to finish. Romance movies aren't 4 minutes of running to the airport and then 1 minute of hugging. Balance. Aim at balance. When I was younger, I was very skewed one direction towards the other, rest or action, mostly towards action. I thought it worked well for me, but it only gave me the surface appearance of working. I always did too much. And if I had lived a balanced life of rest and action, I would have, yeah, sure, made it further than I had. And second off, made more fun and had more friends along the way. So I balance rest and action now. I should have done it then. Too much action is extractive of resources. We're not trying to squeeze as much out before discarding the ingredients. So, back to the metaphor of the romance movie, a romance movie doesn't shove as much romance per minute. There is also some release with the tension. So, that's why when you watch one romance movie, it is just one, and it's not like 64 little squares of romance per romance. That would be nonsense. Give yourself permission slips. There's so many times I waited for a sign from the universe, from the greater universe, before acting. And sure, this worked out in the end. But as I grew, I learned I could give myself my own permission slip. I can give myself the ability to start goals, stop goals, choose and be self directed, and then just go for it. I don't need to wait for the universe. I make my own divine timing. There is a microcosm within me that gives me permission for everything. So, permission slips are a lot like the ones you've received in school. You can sign them yourself, or you can try to wake up your sleep deprived, overworked mother. Spiritual practices are disciplines. The first time you try something is the worst you'll ever be at it. Meditation, I never knew where that would take me when I first discovered what it was. I knew that I trusted the tradition because it made me feel good in the past. And I knew that if so many people said that this works for this or for that reason, that I can make it work for me. I'm competent enough for that. Not that it inherently works outside of me, it's that I have the skills to make this practice work. I saw proof of concepts, like with each person who said, hey, meditation works for me. Boom, proof of concept. The amount of times I've seen people give up after failing the first time, you're supposed to fail the first time. You think you'd enter like an ancient tradition of meditation and then be a once an eon genius? It's like I sat down and then I saw the light. That doesn't usually happen. We're normal people. If you enjoy it, failure aside, keep doing it. There are 7 types of rest. This brings in a psychological principle that there are different types of rest. And when I was younger, I used to think that rest was the only rest you do when you're sleeping or taking a nap. That's the only rest that counted. But there's other kinds: mental rest, where you're just turning your brain off and doing other things, emotional rest, where you're with someone who's making you feel better, and social rest, where you're just taking a social break and doing your own thing. All these different kinds of rests rejuvenate us in different ways that are better than just taking a nap. So rest can still be productive if you want to use that word. The options grow more. Rest is more than a nap. Sometimes it's your bestie, sometimes it's good food, sometimes it's a hike. And I personally love like really good gossip. I mean, a good gossip is right up there with rage baiting on the internet with how good it makes me feel. Relationships with all beings are most important. With yourself, with people, with beings, ancestors, concepts. Relationships are key, and relationships will take you far. And I'm talking to my younger self here. She didn't really prioritize relationships. I don't really know what she prioritized, but it was maybe the pursuit of truth, of deeper secrets. But The truth doesn't really matter now that I see. If you do grasp the truth and you're alone, it would have been better to never come close to the truth and instead have a loving community, a loving, supportive community around you. And you ask me, how does having a relationship like with the spirit of the house help me and help it? Well, I treat the house better and it treats me better, and good feelings ensue. So hug your house and watch your fortunes rise. Enlightenment means awareness. When you have gained an awareness, you have gained an enlightenment. They are infinite and ever deepening. It's always an enlightenment happening. Every second is a new enlightenment. It's a matter of what awareness you're getting and how you're deepening that awareness. It's your little self connecting to your big self. And it's not something to chase because it's already there. It would be easier just to appreciate the enlightenments you are getting and growing that way. You're also getting enlightenments every second, infinite enlightenments all the way down. You're living in a constant state of awareness and awareness deepening. Some people only label it special if you've gained their understanding. Just do the practices and you'll feel better. Exercise that awareness skill. And what? And 2 awareness. And 3 awareness. So this one's a little more specific. Study Taoism, the macrocosmic orbit, and then non-Western philosophy, because this has accounted for 80% of my growth in the past 3 years. No jokes here. Taoism is a good, long, old tradition, and then non-Western philosophy as a whole leads to better beliefs in alchemy than, like, this is a blank spell. The universe is on your side, so dance with it. If someone is aiming to hurt you, they're just expressing themselves and giving you a chance to respond. And I'm talking about psychologically here. It's in your reaction that the truth is created, that meaning is created. You get to respond. You are in charge of you, and you get to dance. You are an active participant. Life doesn't happen to you, it happens with you. And all sorts of things are encapsulated in this. I've heard people talk about victim mentality, and sure, truth is a paradox here. Yes, things happen to you. Yes, you also have free will in responding when you take a beat to breathe. And then the biases you have are weapons we can wield. Lesser magicians will market a worldview based on fear, anger, domination, and control. Do not fall for it. The world is never against you. It is for you, and you can choose how to dance with it. Do not let the confirmation bias latch onto the belief that the world is cruel. The confirmation bias and all other biases are weapons to protect yourself, your health, and your family. Does the truth matter if you're in pain and you can't alleviate other people's pain? Regarding cultural appropriation, look at practice from within its paradigm. Look at each practice from within its own paradigm. Some paradigms say, hey, don't share this with other people. And some encourage sharing so long as it's done from within the culture. The experts are people from within whatever culture you're looking at. I'm not the expert in other people's culture, and you're certainly not the expert. A famous example is that, like, white sage or the practice of smudging has not been okayed for use outside the culture of its original users, while the practice of smoke cleansing with incense has no such taboo. So, the practice of commercializing yoga into only the poses and not the spirituality or ethics, or done by skinny white ladies and upscale gyms, has been frowned upon by many in culture practitioners, and then some don't care. So exercise your own caution. I love the phrase culture vulture though, because it really just aims at people who are picking which part to steal. So maybe be a culture pelican and swallow that culture whole. Practicing yoga from within the perspective of the paradigm or with people's recommendations looks like uplifting the whole culture as well as the part you're using. So generally taking a practice out of context and then profiting from it is seen as taboo. Personal practices are less taboo, even if some are appropriative. In short, look from within the culture and look to the experts within their culture to be teachers, and not from the mind of your own birth country. This is a short reading list and suggestions. Remember this affirmation when you're reading any book. Within this book is an enlightenment. Enlightenment is not floating above a mountain, it is simply a new awareness. So you're going to do well. Within every book you read, you will deepen your awareness in a specific area and you'll deepen your knowledge. Most of these are decolonial philosophies, and none of these are really practical books. There are so many practical books, and it depends on what practice you want to get into. The specific practice matters less than the attitude you take towards it. So you heard right. The basics, pretty much the same. The advanced stuff, also pretty much the same, but we're not going to get into that. Only the perspective matters, and it certainly isn't the perspective you were forced to have since you were born. So if you study sutras, Indian philosophy, womanism, you study indigenous African philosophy, all the ways to achieve ecstasy, you're going to get where you're going. Whether you do your own ancestral practices or the practices that were okay to use from other experts. Whoever your favorite teacher is, whatever teacher you find, you can learn from their practices and you'll go where you need to go with this list of books. Travel is more than taking a plane somewhere. So absorb more than what you've been told to, like in grade school. Decolonizing is letting yourself have control over your own mind. It's sovereignty over this. Self brainwashing, because, hey, I mean, dirty brains need washing too. All right, here's the list: Wild Poets of Ecstasy, Braiding Sweetgrass, the Heart Sutra, the Bhagavad Gita, Restoring the Kinship Worldview, Hunt, Gather, Parents, All Our Relations, Becoming Kin, Grandmother's Hands, Pleasure Activism, God is a Black Woman, Of Water and Spirits, Healing Wisdom of Africa. All right, and then I do have some exercises if you're just starting, or just some guidance on that. It's a way to explore before settling on any for further study. I can say meditation, but let's be honest, that's such a broad topic, and it would be pretty useless if I gave you, here's how to do concentration meditation or compassion meditation. I might as well say, hey, let's start with spells or let's start with grounding, and then give you a list of 1001 ways to ground. So I'm not here to give you a curriculum in this episode. I am here to tell you to look both ways before crossing the street, and then it's up to you not to cross a highway, Frogger style. So yeah, certain areas you want to start with. You want to get strong in any grounding skills. You need protection spells. You need cleansing spells. You want to get strong in meditation. Grounding, cleansing. There's ways to develop such a muscle when it comes to grounding and cleansing that any heightened emotion or harmful energy can resolve itself on its own in 15 seconds. And then I've heard it described as you can parry a trigger if you have the right timing and know the right mental move to make. And I've witnessed it in my near circle where people can just shrug off a trigger that used to be worrying them. And it's effort, yes, and it's not automatic. So it's not like the trigger isn't a trigger. It's just they know the move to make. They know the coping skill. There are such skills that any energy sent your way can instantly be devoured and transmuted for your own benefits. And those may be some practices to look forward to, sure, but right now, just check out the arenas you want to look through. So the best way to pick any of those areas is to see which one calls to you, roll a dice. It doesn't matter. Divine which arena you want to go through, and then practice one specific practice from that arena. And you know you, I don't know you, I'm not supposed to know you. Just do the practice that you found for a month and journal. This is the guidance. Practice and then journal. If you've ever done a rigorous science class, congratulations. The experiment journal you did there is the same experiment journal you're going to do here. You're going to journal your skills before. You're going to see how each practice feels within your energy field. You're going to see which areas of life the practice affected. You're going to see how fast you grew, and then how fast other skills grew because of this one. Like maybe you're cleaning better, maybe you're more enthusiastic about life, and maybe nothing happens, which is just as important to know. And this way, you'll have enough familiarity when you've done that. Like you do this for a year, you're going to have so many practices. Even if you just do one intensely for a week, there's 52 different practices that you'll have a survey of that you'll be able to tell, hey, I'm so good, and these are the top 5 that changed my life. And then you lay into those, and that becomes the basis of which the rest of your spiritual journey grows. Self direction is the most important part. Sovereignty up here is the most important part. You want to trust which lessons your intuition is leading you towards. It's cheesy, right? Because it's the same as saying, hey, the answer is within, but it's right in this instance. And hopefully, I gave you more in depth guidance than just saying the answer is within. There are people who want to push their own specific practices. Like, hey, I need you to meditate on the alphabet, the Grecian one instead of the Roman one, or just silly minor differences. That doesn't matter so much as what you feel on the inside, what your intuition is telling you. So don't get inducted into a cult of personality and keep your own sovereignty. Find a way to clear energy in your body. And I relate this to movement. When I say fitness, I'm not talking about running a marathon or bodybuilding. I'm talking about any movement that clears energy in your body, that you notice clears energy in your body best. That can be dancing, yoga, qigong, martial arts, walking, lifting weights. These change our energy patterns and move energy within ourselves. And when our energy within ourselves is clear, we can then manipulate it and do what we want regarding cleansing, protection, grounding, spell work, and meditation. Clearing energy requires physical movement. Any movement that resonates with you is the correct movement. Please trust yourself more than you trust me. You don't need to follow my workout routine. You can develop your own. And then after you've found all the skills and you've ran with all of them, you can start absorbing spiritual texts along the same. So you have your spiritual practice curriculum where you're practicing certain types of meditations to see which ones resonate the most. You also have your self-study curriculum where you're studying texts. It's absorbing any text with a mindset that I'm using this to grow and gain deep awareness. And if you use that mindset within every text is an enlightenment, then any book you read will give you spiritual enlightenment. You can read 10,000 romance books and be just as enlightened as a person who studies only the mainstream spirituality texts. These are signs that you're advancing. You achieve this list: progress in your goals, better sleep, more energy, stability, magnetism, discipline, and focus. I may as well have promised you that the hair will grow back on your head and that you'll lose 10 pounds. It's just words until you feel it yourself. Just as you grow, you notice that others grow around you. And here, again, it's important to journal and record your changes and your wins so you can see your growth. I recommend, like on an app or in paper, write 3 wins you've done for the day at 3 p.m. This way, I'm not just selling you snake oil. You'll have like a tangible, biteable, smellable, even evidence. And then as it grows, you'll have 1,000 things by the end of the year that you're proud of. And you'll notice your growth that way. All these signs will come slowly. Maybe you'll get a little better in one and then fail in the others before it stabilizes and everything comes back to normal. They'll all come through. Advancement is really inevitable. It's as reliable as a silk scarf grinding down a mountain with light slaps year after year. Progress isn't a straight line, it's not even stair steps up. It's plateaus, down, backwards, up, down, in, out, all dimensions. It's going slower and faster. Trust yourself. That's the most important advice here. That and trust that this spiritual technology that you're practicing has been honed over thousands of years. And that's your competence, that you can dance with the rhythm of the universe. Of course, the universe chooses the music, nothing you can do about that, but it is still conspiring in your favor. You do these things, and the goals will inevitably happen. Inevitable. I can't keep saying it enough. You do the practices that have been honed over thousands of years. Growth is inevitable. Every step on your journey, on your spiritual journey, is the right step. You don't have to agree with this, but keep watching for the explanation. Very rarely is one phrase ever going to convince you of anything. It's not Zen. I'm not a Zen master. I'm not going to hit you with a stick, literally or verbally. So picture yourself guided by something greater. And I was guided by that something greater when I was younger. And looking back now, I can feel it too. In the future, I know I'm just being guided by that same thing. And This thing can be whatever. It can be a doorknob telling you to be nice to your neighbor. Congratulations. Your doorknob is telling you to be mean to your neighbor. Maybe find a different household object that's telling you to be nice. So the thing is here, it doesn't matter what the greater thing is. It matters that it's doing good in your life. It's leading you a place where you can be most beneficial to yourself and others, and then all the relationships around you. It has to be that way because if you neglect yourself, you certainly won't help your relationships. If you prioritize yourself, you're like a hot dog vendor lovingly making each dog for the customer, and you're the glue of the community. But if you prioritize others before caring for yourself, well, that's like riding a hog with a gas powered Glizzy Launcher 3000 on your shoulder, and you're delivering just high speed meat to everyone you pass. It's not a good time for anybody. It's this faith and that guiding principle that's most beneficial for me. It's protective. It doesn't need to be true, like I keep saying, because I make it true with every move I make. Truth doesn't ever matter. It's nice, sure. I really like the confirmation bias. I confirm the belief with every action I have, and that leads me to living an easier life with more growth towards my goals. The belief that I can do hard things gets confirmed every time I do a hard thing. It also gets confirmed every time I savor and write down the memory. My memory is pretty Swiss cheese, and the only thing between me and then utter wallowing in the pit of despair is the list of hard things I've written down. And because I rely on that confirmation bias to believe and build that beneficial belief, I am stronger, more resilient, and I'm better at achieving my goals. And even if I'm not, it literally feels better this way. It's a theme with me that I want to be more effective than the capital T truth. And then some reassurance. Study broadly non Western philosophies and cultures. You're not trying to get this right. You're trying to let the material change you with each repetition. Inspiration and relation. My mind was congested with Western theories on what life should be like. There's only one way to do it, and we've got to get there as fast as possible. I didn't like that. A lot of Western philosophies are based on domination and control, and this can be seen from the assembly line production of school children to our agricultural practices. We want to expand that awareness and expand what you're consciousness of. From that perspective, we'll be able to see further and have more accurate judgments of where we should go. If you do want to be told, then find and study the macrocosmic orbit from Taoism. And if you've liked what I've had to say, go ahead, follow, subscribe, check where I am out on other places. You'll find more of me, and let me know if there's anything you want me to talk on.